Kieran, the job of the Prime Minister is to unite the country, not divide Australians, not to pit one Australian against another. That's what this Prime Minister does all the time when it comes to climate change, and I've had enough of it. We can unify Australia in a national objective, a national endeavour to deal with climate change, give ourselves a better planet, but also seize the jobs opportunity that goes with it. And you know where that jobs opportunity is centred? In regional Australia. Those areas which have powered Australia through cheap and reliable energy will power Australia with clean and reliable energy. Those areas with the access to ports and railway lines and roads, the Central Queensland's, the Hunter Valley, the Illawarra. But when the Prime Minister engages in that cheap, tawdry identity politics of pitting one Australian against another, he should hang his head in shame.
The Labor review after the last election stated very clearly that the inability to, I guess, deal with both of those competing constituencies was a reason for the loss, part of the reason.
Sure. And Scott Morrison wants to keep those climate culture wars going. I mean, I saw Dave Sharma the other day saying, it's the job of the Australian diplomatic corps to send the message to the rest of the world that the climate wars are over in Australia. Well, tell your government, mate, first. Tell Scott Morrison that the climate wars are over with that cheap, divisive identity politics he was engaging in last night. Tell Matt Canavan with what he's been on about today. By contrast, Kieran, Anthony Albanese and I today convened a summit here in Parliament House, a clean technology jobs summit, talking about the economic opportunities for all Australians in the suburbs and in the regions, dealing with the climate emergency, but recognising the climate emergency is Australia's jobs opportunity. And we want to bring, Anthony Albanese and I, every Australian with us on that journey. We won't be engaging in this division. Scott Morrison saying, inside the goat's cheese circle with a smirk on his face. That's what he's done in the past. That's what he continues to do last night. And it is not befitting the office of Prime Minister of Australia.
You said in recent days in Queensland that the coal miners, the coal industries deserve honesty. What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is that we need to be clear with Australians and the coal mining communities that the world is changing, that decisions are being made in the boardrooms of Beijing and Tokyo and Seoul about transitions to net zero, China by 2060, most of the rest of the world by 2050, and that's going to have an impact. Now, we can say to communities in Australia, don't worry about it, it's not going to happen, everything will keep going as it is. Or we can say, listen, things are changing, Australia's domestic policy is important, and we'll have good domestic policy in Australia, but so is the rest of the world changing, and we can leave you on your own to say good luck with that change, or we can be with you every step of the way, talking to you about the future, planning the diversification of the economy, creating new jobs in regional communities so that young people have opportunities, not just in coal, yes, in coal for some time to come, but not just in coal, in generating energy through renewable energy, in storing that energy through massive upgrades to batteries and hydro and hydrogen. All these opportunities for Australia that at the moment we are missing out on.
So when you look at the ability of, say, Matt Canavan to talk so clearly to that group, those communities in central and North Queensland, that's done within the coalition, and you're saying to them, look, we've got to be honest with you. Is it, in pure politics, is it easier for the Prime Minister to have the likes of Matt Canavan
a simple lie
campaigning on that?
Simple lie is always easier than a more complicated truth, Kieran. But it's a fundamental betrayal of the national interest, and it's a fundamental betrayal of those communities to lay out some sort of snake oil that somehow there's going to be, nothing's going to change around the world, that our exports are just going to continue exactly as they have been and are, that the rest of the world isn't moving to net zero, and that there aren't massive opportunities to diversify economies, give people choices, create jobs for the future, for our young people in particular, into the future. And, not jobs outside energy. When we're talking about this, we're not saying, oh, well, this is going to change, so you've got to go and do something else. I'm talking about jobs in energy. And the good news is, Kieran, that the skills that you have as an energy worker are by and large the same, very similar. If you're working in a particular form of energy generation, if there's new energy generation coming on, including with storage, which is very important, you are a highly skilled individual, and with the right support for your community and for you, you can capitalise on this jobs opportunity in Australia.
We're within days of the Biden Climate Summit and an ambitious 2030 target. It's a non-binding target, but it will drive discussion internationally. Is it time then for Labor at that point? When will you look at it?
Well, we're already looking at our roadmap to 2050. I've made that very clear, and we will announce a roadmap to 2050. You're right, it's a big week for the world, not just President Biden, but I would hope and expect other countries will be filling out a lot of their detail. Now, unfortunately, Kieran, I don't participate in this forum. I'm not a member of the government. I won't be at Glasgow in November participating in COP as much as I'd love to be. Only the government of the day speaks for the country. It's incumbent on the government of the day to speak for the country in a better fashion than they have been, and to provide not only better ambition, but better realising of the opportunities that are there for Australia.
So when you say better ambition, do you mean by 2030 or 2050?
Well, the fundamental point is that they don't even agree on the destination. I mean, Scott Morrison had weak weasel words last night about net zero. Even that sent his government into a tailspin, with Matt Canavan, on your network this morning, pouring a pile of abuse over the Prime Minister about that, and tweeting that net zero is not an ambition that Australia can realise, which is fundamentally wrong and a lack of understanding, but also goes to the division of the government. And if you can't agree on net zero by 2050, it's the very basics. It shouldn't be remarkable. It shouldn't be a point of contest between the two political parties. We should both agree on that. Maybe we could disagree about the pathway there, but we should both at least agree on that. We're there. We support net zero by 2050. Where were the other 120 countries around the world? Where were every other developed country in the world in committing to net zero by mid-century? Australia is not.
And your midterm ambition?
When I say Australia's not, the country actually is. Every state and territory, local government, business, everybody else is, except for Scott Morrison and his government. Now, on the medium term, yes, we need to lay out a pathway to get there. We will be laying out a pathway to get there. But importantly, Kieran, I'm not just going to go out and announce targets without policies as well. We started outlining the policies to reduce emissions, electric vehicles, community batteries and others. We'll continue to do that, and we'll be providing a very clear pathway, including where we'll be at various points along the roadmap towards 2050 at key years along the way.
Mr Bowen, I appreciate your time.
Always a pleasure, KG.